The neon sign above the diner on Route 66 outside Gallup, New Mexico, had been flickering since 1953. It read Starlight Diner, open 24 hours in red and blue cursive, though the S had burned out years ago, so drivers passing at night saw only Starlight Diner. The building itself was a classic stainless steel prefab from the post-war boom, long and low, with curved corners, wide windows, and a flat roof that collected dust and tumbleweed in equal measure. Inside, the air always smelled of coffee that had been on too long, fryer grease, and something faintly metallic, like old nickels left in a pocket. Booth 13 sat in the far back corner, against the wall where the jukebox used to be before it was unplugged in 1987 and never replaced. The red vinyl seats were cracked but patched with duct tape. The Formica tabletop had a burn mark from a forgotten cigarette in 1964, and a small brass plaque screwed into the edge that read, "Reserved, permanent." No one ever sat there unless they had no choice. On the night of November 14th, 2019, Clara Navarro did. She was 31, 5'5" in the worn black sneakers she had not taken off in 3 days, 114 pounds after living on gas station coffee and grief. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy knot, strands escaping like they were trying to get away from her. She had driven from Albuquerque in a 2008 Honda Civic with 217,000 miles on the odometer, the kind of car that coughed blue smoke when it started and rattled when it hit 60. She had left her phone in a rest area trash can outside Grant's, screen cracked, SIM card snapped in half. In the left pocket of her faded denim jacket were 4 items: a crumpled $20 bill, a half-empty pack of spearmint gum, 1 paracetamol tablet still in its foil, and a small paper receipt dated November 14th, 2019, from the Starlight Diner, Booth 13, order: black coffee, no sugar, $2.17. She had never been in the diner on that date. The receipt had belonged to her older sister, Marisol, who vanished from Booth 13 on the night of November 14th, 2019. Marisol had pulled in at 2:17 a.m. after a 16-hour shift at the hospital in Albuquerque, ordered black coffee, spoken briefly to the night waitress about the cold front coming down from Colorado, opened her notebook to write a few lines of the novel she had been working on for 7 years, and then, between the time the waitress turned her back to refill the sugar shakers and the moment she looked again, the booth was empty. The notebook was still open, pen uncapped, coffee untouched, steam still rising. The receipt lay on the table with 5 words written in Marisol's neat, left slanting hand on the back. "I'm already at the next table." The county sheriff's office searched for 21 days. They dusted for prints, interviewed every customer who had been in that night, reviewed the single security camera that covered the dining area. No one had seen Marisol leave. No one had seen her walk past the counter, through the kitchen, out the back door, or into the restroom. The footage showed her sitting down at 2:19 a.m., adjusting her jacket, opening the notebook. The camera ran for 4 hours and 47 minutes. Then the booth was empty. No door movement. No one passing in the frame. The case was marked, missing presumed suicide, and shelved. Clara kept the receipt because it was the last thing Marisol had touched. She kept it in the same envelope as the sympathy cards she had never opened. Tonight she intended to return it. She had no real plan beyond sitting in booth 13, ordering the same black coffee, waiting until the clock passed 2:47 a.m., and seeing what happened. If nothing happened, she would leave the receipt on the table and walk into the desert until the cold and the dark took her. If something did happen, well, she had stopped trying to imagine that part months ago. The diner was nearly empty at 2:17 a.m. A trucker in the corner booth slept with his head on folded arms. An elderly couple paid their check at the counter. The night waitress, late 50s, name tag reading Doris, wiped down the counter with slow, practiced strokes. Clara walked straight to booth 13 and slid in. The seat was warm. She told herself it was the heater vent underneath. She sat facing the window, back to the rest of the diner, watching her reflection in the glass overlaid with the dark highway beyond. A single semi passed, headlights cutting long white tunnels through the night. She folded her hands in her lap. Thumbs circled slowly. At 2:19 a.m. Doris appeared with a menu she didn't need. "Coffee?" she asked. "Black," Clara said. "No sugar." Doris nodded and walked away. When she returned with the cup, she did not set it down immediately. She looked at Clara for a long moment, then at the empty seat across from her. "You're Clara," she said quietly. "Marisol's sister." Clara's thumbs stopped moving. Doris set the coffee down. Steam rose in a thin white column. "I've been waiting for you," she said. 6 years, for months, and 3 days. She reached into her apron pocket and produced a small paper receipt, identical to the one in Clara's jacket. Same date, same booth, same order, same price. On the back, in Marisol's handwriting, "Tell Clara I waited." Clara stared at the receipt. Doris slid into the seat opposite her. "I was here that night," she said. "I served Marisol the coffee. She looked like you. Same eyes, same way of folding her hands. She thanked me, said the coffee was stronger than the hospital stuff. Then she opened her notebook and started writing. When I turned around to refill the sugar, she was gone. Notebook still open, coffee still hot, receipt on the table with that message." She paused as the trucker in the corner booth stirred, then settled back into sleep. "The diner remembers," Doris continued. "Every order, every booth, every word spoken at every table. When someone leaves something behind, a receipt, a napkin with a phone number, a single tear on the formica, the diner keeps it. And when the conditions are right, Thursday night, 2:47 a.m., certain number of souls in the building, it uses that remnant to call someone else. Someone who can finish what the first person started." She opened a small spiral notebook she had pulled from her apron and turned it so Clara could see the page. A neat list in blue ink. November 14th, 2019, Marisol Navarro, booth 13. Disappeared 2:47 a.m. Receipt left on table. January 19th, 2020, female, mid-30s, booth 13. Disappeared mid-conversation. April 14th, 2020, female, booth 13. Left a notebook behind. August 3rd, 2020, female, booth 13. Never seen again. 43 entries. All women. All sitting in booth 13 on a Thursday night. All vanishing between 2:30 and 2:50 a.m. All leaving something behind. "And now you," Doris said. March 2025. Booth 13. Clara Navarro. Sister of Marisol. Same jacket. Same habit of folding your hands. Same receipt in the pocket. Same reason for coming. Clara felt the vinyl seat grow warmer beneath her. "What happens when the clock hits 2:47? She asked. "If you leave before then," Doris said. "Nothing. You pay your tab. You walk out into the parking lot. You drive away. You tell yourself you tried. The dreams might ease after a year or two. If you're unlucky, you'll find yourself pulling into this lot again in 6 months. Same booth. Same coffee. The pattern repeats." The clock above the counter ticked over to 2:31. Doris leaned forward. "If you stay past 2:47, she continued, "the diner decides. It's been doing this since 1953, the year the first waitress disappeared from this booth. Longer than I've been alive. Every few months it takes someone. Sometimes it returns someone, different, quieter, but breathing. It always balances the ledger. 1 in, 1 out, or 2 in, none out. Depends on how much of the story it still needs to hold." The trucker in the corner booth stood up, left cash on the table, and walked out. The elderly couple had already gone. The diner was empty except for Clara, Doris, and the low hum of the fluorescent lights. Doris stood. "I have to start the closing routine," she said. "When I come back at 2:45, you need to choose. Pay and leave and carry the not knowing for the rest of your life. Or stay here and face whatever is waiting when the clock turns." She looked at Clara steadily. "I'll be back before the minute hand moves again," she said. "Think carefully." She walked back to the counter. Clara sat alone. She took the old receipt from her pocket and laid it beside the one Doris had given her. They lay side by side on the formica. She stared at them until the coffee steam blurred her vision. The clock ticked to 2:39. She thought about Marisol's last text message, sent at 2:17 a.m. on November 14th, 2019. "Stopped for coffee. Home tomorrow. Love you." Clara had replied with a coffee emoji and gone back to sleep. She thought about the sheriff's deputy who had sat in her kitchen and said, "Sometimes people just walk out of the picture, miss. The road doesn't always bring them back." She thought about the nights she had spent in Marisol's apartment, wearing this jacket, breathing in the last traces of her sister's perfume on the collar, pretending Marisol was just in the bedroom writing. She picked up both receipts. She stayed in the booth. When Doris returned at 2:45, she did not look surprised. "You've chosen," she said. It was not a question. "I want to see her," Clara said. Doris nodded once. "Then we wait." She slid back into the opposite seat. The clock ticked over to 2:47. The fluorescent lights dimmed to a soft amber. The jukebox, unplugged for 38 years, began to hum faintly. The diner smelled stronger now, of coffee and grease and something older, like time left too long on the burner. Clara looked across the table. Marisol was sitting there. She wore the same hoodie she had disappeared in. Her face was unchanged, but her eyes held decades of waiting. "You kept the receipt," Marisol said. Clara's throat closed. "I never threw anything away," she whispered. "I know," Marisol said. "I watched every sheriff visit. Every night you sat in my apartment wearing my jacket. I saw you cut your hair. I saw you drive here. I saw you sit down." She looked out through the wide window. Beyond the glass was not Route 66 anymore. It was an endless row of identical diners stretching into darkness. Every diner had a booth 13. In every booth sat a woman, some who looked exactly like Marisol, some who looked like Clara at different ages, some who looked like neither but carried the same tired posture, the same folded hands. Marisol turned back. "You can still leave," she said. "Pay the check. Walk out to the car. Drive away. The dreams will fade. Eventually." Clara reached across the table and took Marisol's hand. "No," she said. "I'm staying." Marisol smiled, small, sad, almost grateful. "Then the coffee stays hot." The diner lights dimmed to a faint red glow. Clara felt the booth vibrate as though the entire building had exhaled. Outside the windows, the other women began to move forward, pressing close to the glass. Marisol placed a hand on Clara's wrist. "Welcome to the table," she said. The front door locked itself. The receipts slid into the tabletop crack and stayed there. Above, on the ordinary Route 66, the Starlight Diner's neon sign flickered on as usual at 6 a.m. Doris flipped the open sign, brewed fresh coffee, and wiped down the counter. Booth 13 was empty, coffee cup untouched. 2 receipts lay side by side on the table. Doris collected them, added them to the small collection in her apron pocket, and continued her shift. No one noticed the diner sat a fraction heavier on its foundation that morning. No one noticed the guest check now carried 2 additional names, both assigned to booth 13. The Starlight Diner opened again the next night. It would open again tomorrow, and the day after, and every night after that. The diner kept its debts. The booths remembered everything. And deep inside the endless row of chrome and glass that existed only when needed, two sisters sat across from each other watching the highway through windows that looked out onto every Thursday night that had ever been and every Thursday night still to come. They did not speak. They did not need to. The receipts were safe. The coffee stayed hot.